You know, you sit down on the couch after a really long day and you pull out your phone, right?
Oh, yeah. Just to check one text message.
Exactly. Or maybe just look at a single email. I mean, before you even realize what's happening, you're just staring at a screen.
2 hours are suddenly gone.
It's completely gone, and you're, like, deeply invested in a video of a tiny hamster eating an equally tiny, perfectly wrapped burrito.
Naturally. As one does.
Right, and then you suddenly look up at the clock, and it's midnight. 2 whole hours have just vanished into thin air.
It's the worst feeling.
It really is. You
Foggy.
just sit there in the glow of the screen and you ask yourself that incredibly heavy question, like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, that digital trance.
Yeah.
We've all been trapped in it.
We really have.
Yeah.
But what is truly wild about our deep dives today, and this is where it gets interesting, is that the most profound insights we found on how to stop wasting your life aren't actually coming from life coaches.
Right, or productivity gurus, which is what you'd expect.
Exactly. They are coming from English grammar transcripts and learning resources.
It sounds like a total paradox, honestly.
It really does. But why are language instructors suddenly acting like, I don't know, existential therapists?
Well, when you look at the transcripts and the learning materials we're analyzing today, the underlying theme is just inescapable.
I mean, you would think a lesson on conversational English would just involve memorizing verb conjugations.
Right, or learning how to order a sandwich. But these aren't just sterile vocabulary lists. They're essentially philosophical guides disguised as language acquisition.
It's fascinating. They're telling you to stop procrastinating your own existence.
Exactly. They use the casual, highly efficient rhythms of real American English. So focusing on time, daily habits, the fear of making mistakes to bridge that gap between academic knowledge and actual human connection.
But it's not just about the rules.
Not at all. The entire architecture of this material is built around a single mandate, which is don't waste your life.
But why? Like, why focus so heavily on that existential dread in a language lesson?
Because the biggest barrier to fluency for most adults has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence or memory.
Really? It feels like memory is the biggest hurdle.
You'd think so, but it's purely psychological. The cognitive load of learning a new language is heavy, sure, but the emotional load, that's what's paralyzing.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. If you treat language merely as a mathematical system of rules to be memorized, you create an environment where the goal is perfection.
And perfectionism just breeds avoidance.
Exactly. What these specific materials recognize is that by linking the act of speaking to the finite, fleeting nature of human time, you create an immediate sense of urgency.
Like your life is happening right now.
Yes. The subtext is clear. If you wait until your grammar is flawless to join the conversation, you are going to miss out on participating in the world entirely.
Wow. Language is inherently tied to vulnerability then, and action.
100%.
That reframes the entire process for me. Because if you wait until you're flawless, you just miss out on the world.
You do.
And that urgency perfectly aligns with the very first linguistic phenomenon we noticed running through all these transcripts.
Oh, how American English treats time itself.
Yes. In American culture, time is not just an abstract concept. It is treated exactly like currency.
It really is entirely transactional.
We spend it, we save it, and we waste it.
Well, the vocabulary of a language always reveals the psychology of the culture speaking it, you know?
Phew, for sure.
You don't merely experience time in the United States, you manage it like a bank account.
Right, you're the accountant of your own life.
Exactly. And because of that transactional nature, there are very specific vocabulary distinctions that reflect how much agency you have over that resource.
And the one that trips so many people up, and I used to hear this constantly from my international friends, is the distinction between wasting time and losing time.
Oh, yeah. That is a massive pitfall.
People will say, I lost my time watching that movie.
Right. And it makes perfect sense if you directly translate from Romance languages, for example, where the concept of losing time is completely standard.
But in English, you lose physical objects.
Exactly. You lose your car keys, you lose your wallet. Losing implies a lack of culpability.
Yeah.
You're just a victim of circumstance.
Right, like your keys fell out of your pocket. You didn't do it on purpose.
But time is currency. If you do something useless with it, you waste time. Wasting implies agency.
Ah, so you possess this valuable resource, and you made a conscious decision to squander it.
Yes, on something devoid of value. So saying, I wasted 2 hours instead of I lost 2 hours. It's a subtle semantic shift, but it carries a massive cultural weight.
It means you're taking responsibility for the transaction.
Precisely.
And the distinction between spending time and passing time carries that exact same weight of agency.
Oh, absolutely.
When I read the breakdown of this in the sources, I realized how depressing the phrase passing time actually is.
It's so passive.
The material notes that saying, I passed my time watching a movie makes it sound like you're trapped in a dentist's waiting room.
Just staring at a blank wall.
Yeah, desperately trying not to be bored out of your mind.
Passing time has an agonizing passive quality to it. It implies you are essentially under siege by time.
You're just waiting for the clock to tick down so you can escape.
Right, escape a situation you do not want to be in. But spending time, on the other hand, is an active investment.
Like, I spent the weekend with my family, or I spent the evening reading.
It suggests purpose. You took your currency and you bought an experience with it.
It's the difference between being stuck in an airport terminal when your flight has been delayed by 6 hours versus, taking the money you earned and actively going out to buy a really good meal with your friends.
That's a great analogy. In the terminal, you're just existing, looking at the ceiling, waiting for it to be over. You're passing the time.
But the meal is an active, purposeful investment. You are spending it.
And that relentless desire to maximize that investment leads directly to the American obsession with saving time.
Which brings us to the story of Carla.
Oh, poor Carla.
And her industrial-sized pot of lentil soup. This story from the sources is just the ultimate tragedy of meal prep gone wrong.
It really is. We've all been there, honestly.
So Carla is a busy professional, and she wants to save time during her work week. Sunday rolls around, and she decides to make this massive pot of lentil soup.
I mean, her logic seems flawless.
It does. She won't have to cook. She won't have to clean up the kitchen every night. She has successfully saved time.
But by Wednesday,
she is staring at this bowl of brown mush, completely sick of it and absolutely miserable.
she technically saved time, but she ultimately wasted her happiness.
Wow. Wasted her happiness to save time.
Carla's story reveals the really dark side of efficiency culture. When a society is utterly obsessed with cutting corners and doing things faster, time becomes a commodity that must be optimized.
And the psychological consequence of treating time like a precious commodity is guilt, right?
Exactly. When you optimize every waking second, any moment you spend doing nothing or doing something purely for joy that doesn't yield a tangible result, it feels like a moral failure.
Carla optimized the joy right out of her meals.
She did. The linguistic focus on saving time creates an environment where people feel this crushing guilt for simply existing.
You want to save time so badly, but when you finally have free time, you feel guilty for not spending it perfectly. It's a total trap.
It is.
And if time is so incredibly valuable, if it's a currency that must be aggressively managed, it perfectly explains why daily, casual interactions in the United States are designed to be as fast and efficient as possible.
Which is exactly where the illusion of textbook perfection falls apart in real life.
Right. You see this collision happen constantly.
Oh, all the time. A person studies the grammar rules religiously, they memorize the formal structures, and then they walk out into the real world.
Into a diner or an airport or a coffee shop.
And suddenly the perfect English they learned in Chapter 1 just sounds incredibly robotic.
In many cases, being structurally perfect actually creates social awkwardness in rapid-fire, casual situations.
Daniel from Brazil is the perfect example of this collision from the sources.
Yes, Daniel. So, Daniel moves to New York. He is confident. He has studied hard. He walks into a classic, fast-paced New York diner during his first week.
A high-stress environment.
Very. The waitress walks up, pen in hand, and asks, "How are you doing today?"
And Daniel, drawing on his textbook training, puffs out his chest and delivers a grammatically flawless response.
He says, "I am fine, and you?"
And the waitress chuckles.
She laughs, not maliciously, but she definitely laughs at him. And Daniel is standing there completely confused.
I mean, his grammar was flawless.
Subject, verb, adjective. He didn't make a mistake, so why did it cause friction?
Because structurally, he did nothing wrong. But pragmatically, he disrupted the rhythm of the interaction.
Ah, the rhythm.
Yeah, service industry interactions in America operate on a very specific underlying logic driven by capitalist efficiency.
So the waitress asking, "How are you doing today?" is not a genuine inquiry into his emotional state.
Not at all. It's a scripted greeting meant to establish a baseline of polite pseudo-intimacy before getting straight to the transaction.
By answering with the rigid, formal, "I am fine, and you," Daniel is forcing a literal interpretation of a rhetorical social ritual.
Exactly. It requires the waitress to stop, process his formal cadence, and realize he is stepping outside the expected script.
So what is the script? Like, how are you supposed to answer when you're navigating that kind of high-speed environment?
Native speakers use fast, casual deflections. They say, "Pretty good, thanks. How about you?" Or, "Not bad, you."
Or they might just say, "Hey, how's it going?" Right back.
Right, without even attempting to answer the original question. The goal is not accuracy. The goal is brevity and maintaining the rhythm of the exchange.
The non-answer answer. It is so deeply ingrained.
And this extreme efficiency is everywhere. Look at airports and coffee shops. They are basically the proving grounds for casual English.
That's so true. Nobody at the airport check-in desk says, "Thank you very much for your kind assistance today."
No, they just say, "Here you go."
And the barista doesn't ask, "What would you like to purchase from our establishment?"
They look at the line out the door and say, "What can I get started for you?"
And when you're done ordering, you don't declare, "That completes my transaction." You just say, "That's it."
That's it. 2 syllables. The entire transaction is closed with absolute minimal effort.
It's beautiful in its efficiency, really.
And there is one specific phrase the sources highlight that acts as a linguistic multi-tool for these situations.
Whoa, you're all set.
Yes, you're all set.
It is everywhere. Once you notice it, you cannot unhear it.
It functions as the ultimate signal that a process has reached its conclusion.
You pay for your groceries, the cashier hands you the receipt and says, "You're all set."
You finish getting a haircut, the barber takes off the cape and says, "You're all set."
The airport gate agent scans your boarding pass, "You're all set."
It means you are finished, the obligation is complete, and you are free to leave.
If someone can master the rhythm and placement of "you're all set," they can seamlessly navigate dozens of daily scenarios without ever needing complex grammar.
But learners do try to use complex grammar, even when it isn't necessary.
Like the trap of saying, "I'm agree." The sources mention this one. Why is it that learners constantly try to attach the verb to be to the word agree?
Well, it stems from how agreement is conceptualized in other languages. In many linguistic frameworks, agreeing is treated as a state of being connected to the verb to be.
So you are inhabiting a state of agreement.
Right. But in English, agree functions as a standalone action verb. It doesn't require am or is or are to support it.
You simply perform the action. I agree.
Exactly. Adding the am is a hypercorrection. It's an attempt to build a more complex, sturdier sentence structure because the learner assumes a simple 2-word sentence isn't formal enough.
But wait, if the goal of learning a language is to communicate effectively, why does this rigid, unyielding pursuit of grammatical perfection actually push native speakers away?
It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it seems like trying to speak better English shouldn't make the conversation worse.
Because human sociolinguistics prioritizes rhythm, brevity, and shared understanding over structural perfection.
So in casual settings, using overly formal, textbook English sends a subconscious signal to the listener.
It signals that you're an outsider, that you're calculating your words rather than feeling them, or that you're reading from an internal script.
It creates an emotional distance.
Exactly. Relaxed shorthand, casual deflections, and even minor grammatical shortcuts signal friendliness and belonging.
It tells the other person, "I understand the unspoken social rules of this environment, and we can relax with each other."
It's like showing up to a relaxed backyard barbecue wearing a perfectly tailored 3-piece tuxedo.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. The tuxedo is technically flawless clothing. It's structurally perfect.
But it makes everyone at the barbecue wearing shorts and t-shirts feel incredibly awkward and uncomfortable.
You are dressing for a board meeting when you should be dressing for a hot dog.
Exactly. You need to know how to wear the linguistic t-shirt and jeans.
And knowing how to wear that linguistic t-shirt and jeans requires a deep understanding of context. Because in English, a single letter or a slight misinterpretation of the social environment can drastically alter a conversation's meaning.
Sometimes the results are funny, but often they're socially disastrous.
Yes, the danger of context and the dreaded ing versus ed trap.
Oh boy.
This is the difference between having a normal conversation and completely ruining your own reputation in 5 seconds flat.
The sources single out one specific sentence that almost every learner gets wrong at some point.
I mean, like,
I'm boring and I'm bored. It is a foundational trap.
And the consequences of getting it wrong are immediate. Just imagine you are on a first date.
High stakes.
Very high stakes. You're sitting across from someone you really like. You've had a nice dinner, but there is a lull in the conversation. You're trying to suggest doing something fun, maybe getting dessert or going for a walk. You look them dead in the eye and say, "I'm boring."
You have just torpedoed the entire evening.
You just confessed to having a completely dull personality.
You essentially told them they should run away because you have absolutely nothing interesting to say and you are a chore to be around.
When what you actually meant was, I'm bored, as in, I am currently lacking entertainment, let's go do an activity.
One single letter changes the entire reality of the sentence from a temporary state of mind to a permanent personality flaw.
The mechanism is exactly the same with words like exhausted versus exhausting.
Exactly. If you come home from a grueling 12-hour shift at work, walk through the front door and tell your spouse, I am exhausting.
You are telling them that your very presence drains the life out of them.
You are announcing that you are an emotional vampire.
When you really just intend to say, I am exhausted, meaning you are the one feeling tired.
The failure to distinguish between the cause of the feeling and the receiver of the feeling creates massive confusion.
A great way to visualize this rule is to think of the ed ending and the ing ending like a mirror versus a projector.
I love that analogy from the sources.
Yeah, the ed ending is a mirror. It reflects how you're feeling internally. The emotion is bouncing back at you. I am bored. I am exhausted. I am interested.
The id ending is a projector. It beams out what a thing or a person is to the outside world.
The movie is boring. The hike is exhausting. The book is interesting.
The id reflects the internal state. The in projects the external reality.
Take that projector idea and apply it to a job interview.
Oh, another high-stakes situation.
If you sit down across from a hiring manager and say, I am interesting, you are projecting an arrogant assumption about how they should perceive you.
But if you say, I am interested, you are reflecting your internal enthusiasm for the role.
This is why dictionary definitions are often practically useless without a grasp of the social environment.
The materials provide some incredible anecdotes of context disasters that occur when you translate word for word without understanding the social contract.
May's story at the airport is a perfect example of this.
Oh, May.
So May has just arrived in the United States. She's tired from a long flight, and she walks up to the customs counter. The Border Patrol officer looks at her and asks the standard question. Do you have anything to declare?
And May, who only knows the dramatic, romantic definition of the word, pauses.
She looks at the officer, completely bewildered, and says, declare what exactly?
She thought she was supposed to declare her love or make some grand emotional statement about her life philosophy right there at the border.
I mean, from her perspective, declare is a heavy, emotionally charged verb. You declare war. You declare your undying love.
She didn't realize that in the highly specific context of a customs desk, declare simply means acknowledging that you have extra bottles of alcohol or expensive gifts in your suitcase.
The physical environment completely changed the definition of the word.
Or the guy who told his American friend, I'm hot.
Oh no! A classic failure of context and body language.
Yes, he meant it as, I am attractive, I am feeling good looking today.
He had a fresh haircut, a new shirt, he was feeling confident.
But his friend immediately got up and opened a window, assuming he was talking about the temperature in the room.
The speaker thought his confident posture would carry the meaning, but the friend defaulted to the most common environmental definition of the word.
And, generational context can be even trickier to navigate because it shifts so rapidly.
Oh, slang.
The story of Josh from the transcripts perfectly illustrates how a single word can mean two opposite things depending entirely on the age of the audience.
So Josh is at a family gathering, and he wants to compliment an older relative's cooking.
Right, he wants to sound casual and modern.
So he takes a bite of the food and says, this food is sick.
Now, to anyone under the age of 30, sick means awesome, amazing, top tier.
But to an older relative, the medical definition is the only definition.
Exactly. It sounds like Josh is saying the food is diseased, contaminated, or physically repulsive.
The relative immediately looks concerned and offers him a glass of water.
What this demonstrates is that the audience dictates the meaning just as much as the vocabulary itself.
Slang relies entirely on the social contract of the people in the room. If the older relative hasn't signed that specific generational contract, the communication completely fails.
Even simple, everyday verbs are subject to these strict context rules. The difference between look, watch, and see seems minimal until you put it into practice.
There's that joke in the material about someone asking, did you watch the sunset? And the person replies, no, but I saw it. I looked up for 1 second.
Those three verbs define the duration and intent of the action. You look at something by intentionally directing your eyes toward it. It implies focus.
You watch something over a continuous period of time as it changes, moves, or develops. It implies duration.
But you see something as an instant, passive physical perception. The light hits your retina.
These nuances are rarely grasped purely through rote memorization. They have to be experienced contextually.
And when you realize that a single ed can ruin a date, or that using the wrong slang can make someone think their food is diseased.
It's no wonder people are terrified to speak.
Exactly. These misunderstandings are funny in hindsight, but in a moment they're deeply embarrassing.
And that fear of embarrassment breeds avoidance. It causes people to procrastinate, to delay their progress, to wait for a hypothetical day when they won't make any mistakes at all.
Procrastination is a universal human struggle, but the English language has developed a very specific, almost evasive vocabulary to describe the act of delaying action and the subsequent anxiety of time slipping away.
The primary phrase that comes up repeatedly in the material is put off, as in putting off doing the laundry, putting off studying, or putting off dating.
And the transcripts highlight a really profound concept tied to this phrase, the tragedy of waiting for one day instead of making today day one.
Put off is a fascinating phrasal verb of delay because linguistically it softens the blow to our ego.
It really does. It removes a significant degree of personal agency.
Right. If you say, I am choosing not to do my homework, you are taking direct responsibility for your laziness. You own the failure.
But when you say, I put it off, it makes the delay sound passive and temporary.
It creates a mental image of taking a task and gently placing it on a shelf to deal with later.
It sounds like a logistical scheduling issue rather than a failure of willpower.
It totally softens the guilt. It is an excuse baked right into the grammar.
And that leads directly into the distinction between killing time and making time.
We get the story of Tom, who might be the patron saint of procrastination.
Oh, Tom.
Tom has a massive career-defining presentation due for work. It is highly important. So what does Tom do?
He puts it off.
He puts it off by spending his entire Tuesday organizing his sock drawer by color.
A classic avoidance tactic.
Then he watches a feature-length documentary about bees.
Naturally.
Then he decides, on a whim, that he needs to learn how to juggle, which ends with him dropping oranges onto his poor, unsuspecting cat.
Tom is engaging in extreme avoidance behavior. He is physically active, he is doing tasks, but fundamentally he's killing time to avoid the discomfort of the presentation.
But wait, if time is so precious, if we treat it like currency and constantly worry about wasting it, why do we use such incredibly violent idioms in English?
Like killing time.
Yeah, or killing two birds with one stone, like the story in the sources about Lisa, who tried to save time by studying and cooking simultaneously.
And ended up dropping her heavy textbooks straight into her boiling pasta sauce.
Exactly. Doesn't the phrase killing time imply that we are actively trying to destroy the very thing we claim to value most?
That phrase touches on a deep psychological truth about how humans process boredom.
How so?
The phrase killing time is violent because it highlights the extreme psychological discomfort we feel when we are forced to wait without a distraction.
Oh, interesting.
When we are stuck in an airport or a waiting room, undistracted time feels heavy. It forces us to sit with our own thoughts, our anxieties, and our lack of control over the situation.
It feels like an enemy that must be vanquished.
Exactly. We don't want to exist in the discomfort of waiting, so we attempt to kill the time by scrolling on our phones, organizing socks, or dropping oranges on a cat.
We are trying to destroy the void to avoid facing ourselves.
Yes.
Trying to destroy the void to avoid facing ourselves. That is remarkably dark.
But it explains so much of modern behavior, doesn't it?
It really does. And it stands in stark contrast to the phrase making time.
Making time reclaims that lost agency. It recognizes that time is not something you passively endure. It is something you actively shape.
It means you are taking control of your schedule, acknowledging the chaos of life, and carving out a dedicated space for something that actually matters.
You make time to call your parents. You make time to exercise. You make time to learn a language.
It is an act of creation, whereas killing time is an act of destruction.
And if you don't make time, you fall victim to the idioms that describe time's passage entirely outside of your control.
We say time flies when you're watching those hamster videos, but time drags when you're sitting in a 3-hour meeting about paper clips, desperately counting the ceiling tiles.
Exactly. And I found the distinction the sources made about punctuality fascinating. The difference between arriving on time versus arriving in time.
They look almost identical on paper, But the emotional stakes of those two phrases are vastly different.
The source gives the example of a guy running late to a job interview.
He sprints down the street, bursts through the doors of the building. He's sweating entirely through his clothes. His tie is crooked, and his shirt is literally inside out.
But he opens the door to the office at exactly 2:00 p.m.
He is on time. He achieved punctuality.
He probably didn't get the job because he looked like he just survived a hurricane, but strictly speaking, he was on time.
On time is a purely mathematical relationship to the clock. You met the scheduled requirement.
In time, however, implies a narrative of suspense.
It usually means the nick of time, arriving just before disaster occurs or an opportunity vanishes forever.
You arrive at the airport in time to catch your flight, just as the doors are closing. The hero arrives in time to defuse the bomb.
Speaking of airports and vanishing opportunities, we have to talk about Bob and the concept of FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
Bob's story is the ultimate cautionary tale of procrastination and distraction. Bob had always wanted to go to Hawaii. It was his dream trip.
He kept putting it off year after year.
Finally, he makes time. He buys the tickets, packs his bags, goes to the airport, and sits down at the terminal gate.
He has an hour before boarding.
So he opens his phone and starts watching videos of dogs doing tricks. He gets completely sucked in. The algorithm takes over. He loses all track of his surroundings.
Yeah.
He finally looks up, and he is just in time to watch his plane backing away from the gate.
Oh, that hurts.
He missed his dream trip because he was killing time on his phone.
Bob's tragedy is that he didn't just miss a flight. He missed out on the realization of a goal he had harbored for years.
And FOMO, the fear of missing out, drives so much of our irrational anxiety-induced behavior. It is the fear of missing an experience, a social event, or even a fleeting commercial deal.
The avocado jacket.
Yes. The narrator in one of the sources admits to buying this hideous bright green jacket purely out of FOMO because an advertisement said it was a one-day only, 70% off sale.
They bought it in a panic, wore it exactly once, realized they looked like a giant walking avocado, and shoved it in the back of the closet.
They didn't miss out on high fashion. They just wasted their currency out of pure anxiety.
That anxiety, whether it's the fear of missing a sale, the fear of making a grammatical mistake, or the fear of looking foolish, is precisely what learners need to overcome to actually build the habits necessary for fluency.
You have to move past the paralysis of analysis and move into taking action.
You need the vocabulary to stop making excuses, to navigate the unpredictable, messy results of real life, and to build routines that actually stick.
Because life is not a straight line, and neither is learning a new skill. Things go wrong. You encounter obstacles.
And in American English, you don't generally discover a solution to a daily problem. You figure it out.
The linguistic distinction between discovering and figuring out is heavily emphasized in the materials.
You discover something that already exists but was hidden. You discover a new planet. You discover a lost artifact. A scientist discovers a cure.
But if your phone screen freezes, or your car won't start, or you can't balance your budget, you figure it out.
It implies a messy, active process of trial and error, mental effort, and troubleshooting that eventually leads to a resolution.
And sometimes, despite all your troubleshooting, things just don't go as planned. We use the phrase turn out to describe the final, sometimes incredibly surprising result of a situation.
The sources share the story of a high school troublemaker.
This kid was always in detention, never did his homework, completely unmanageable. Everyone thought he was destined for failure.
But 10 years later, he turned out to be a highly successful, respected heart doctor.
Or, on the flip side, the guy who tried to bake his wife a beautiful, elaborate birthday cake from scratch, and it turned out looking and tasting like a flat, brown rock.
So they ordered a pizza instead.
Exactly. Turnout is essential because it allows you to narrate the unpredictability of life without placing blame.
It acknowledges that the final result often differs wildly from the initial intention. Another critical phrase for navigating when things go wrong is run out of.
This is used when a physical or emotional supply is completely depleted.
You don't say, my phone finished its battery, which is how a lot of direct translations handle it. You say, my phone ran out of battery.
Or, as the material humorously points out, the ultimate American tragedy, running out of coffee?
Oh, running out of coffee in the U.S. is treated like a literal national emergency.
People wander the streets like zombies, completely unable to function.
It is the sudden depletion of the fuel that keeps the entire efficiency culture running. If there is no coffee, the optimization engine grinds to a halt.
But beyond solving these immediate daily logistical problems, the transcripts place an enormous amount of emotional weight on two specific phrases related to habit building.
Showing up and sticking to it.
Showing up is such a powerful concept. It isn't just about physically transporting your body to a location.
There is a touching story in the sources about a father talking to his nervous son right before a big basketball game.
The son is terrified. He is convinced he's going to miss every shot and embarrass himself in front of the crowd.
And the father looks at him and says, half of success is just showing up.
It means being present. It means stepping onto the court, putting yourself in the arena, and being willing to try regardless of the outcome.
Showing up is the direct antidote to putting things off. It requires vulnerability.
And once you show up, you have to stick to it. You have to be glued to your plan when the initial motivation fades.
This is where the language acquisition process gets grueling, and where learners often struggle with the nuances of habit vocabulary. Specifically, the subtle but massive difference between used to and getting used to.
The sources illustrate used to with the bizarre but memorable story of Leo's talking toaster.
I love this story.
Leo bought a novelty toaster that would literally speak to him. Every morning it would pop up the bread and say, "Your toast is ready, handsome."
Leo loved this toaster. It started his day off right.
But it was cheap, and it broke after a week. So now Leo used to have a talking toaster.
It describes a past habit or a past state of being that is unequivocally no longer true.
But get used to, plus an ing verb, describes the ongoing, often uncomfortable process of adapting to a new reality.
Getting used to waking up at 5 a.m., getting used to the cold weather, getting used to speaking English out loud in front of strangers.
It describes a transitional state. I think of getting used to something like breaking in a brand new pair of stiff, heavy leather boots.
That's a great way to put it.
The first few days you wear them, they are awful. They cause blisters, they pinch your heels, they are highly uncomfortable, and you feel awkward walking down the street in them.
You are getting used to them. It is a painful process of adaptation.
But eventually, after weeks of wear, the leather softens. It stretches and molds exactly to the shape of your feet. They become the most comfortable shoes you own. You are used to them.
Learning a language or building any new habit is exactly like breaking in those leather boots. It hurts at first, but you have to walk through the discomfort.
That analogy perfectly captures the friction of the learning process. Fluency is not built in a state of isolated, perfect preparation.
It is built in the messy, uncomfortable trenches of real conversation through small, immediate actions.
It is the concept behind the 5-minute rule mentioned in the transcripts. There's a comparison between two learners.
Emma committed to studying for just 10 minutes a day. She didn't overcomplicate it.
She just showed up for 10 minutes every single day and eventually achieved fluency.
Her friend, meanwhile, wanted the conditions to be perfect. The friend waited for the perfect Monday to start a massive hours-long, perfectly color-coded study session.
And because that perfect Monday never arrived, the friend never actually started at all.
Small, consistent, imperfect actions beat flawless, delayed plans every single time.
Because the pursuit of perfection is an illusion that ultimately isolates us.
Which brings us to the emotional climax of the material we are analyzing today.
The most poignant and frankly heartbreaking realization we found in these transcripts is the tragic, irreversible cost of waiting until you feel ready.
This is where everything we have discussed, efficiency, grammar traps, procrastination, and the fear of making mistakes culminates in one profound truth.
Perfectionism is the enemy of connection. You do not need perfect English to start speaking.
And Sarah's story is the absolute embodiment of this. Sarah's narrative is a devastating case study in the consequences of the preparation phase.
It honestly gave me chills. Sarah studied English for 11 years of her life.
She knew every grammar rule in the book. She could read complex, dense novels. She understood the mechanics of sentence structure better than most native speakers.
But for 11 entire years, she never spoke, not once.
She was completely paralyzed by the fear of her own accent and the absolute terror of making a grammatical mistake in front of a real, judging human being.
She was trapped in the comfort of preparation. She was passing time, managing her textbook exercises, but she was entirely avoiding the vulnerability of spending time in real conversation.
Exactly, until one day, her life forces her hand. She is on a work trip, and she is thrust into a situation where she has no choice.
She must speak to an important client in English.
Yeah.
There is no translator, there is no textbook to hide behind, so terrified, she speaks.
And yes, she makes mistakes, she stumbles, her accent is heavy, the rhythm is awkward.
But the client understands her completely. They have a successful, meaningful business conversation.
And in the aftermath of that interaction, sitting in her hotel room, Sarah has this crushing, overwhelming realization.
She wasted 11 years of her life being afraid of a monster that didn't exist.
She kept her mouth shut for over a decade because she was waiting for a perfection that wasn't even required for human connection.
It is a devastating breakthrough, but a beautiful one. It proves that the goal of language is not academic purity. It is to be understood.
And we see this exact same theme echoed in Carlos's story at the coffee shop.
Carlos was terrified of ordering in public. When he finally musters the courage to step up to the counter, his pronunciation slips in the heat of the moment.
Instead of asking for a nice coffee, he accidentally orders an iced coffee.
And what happens? Does the barista laugh him out of the store? Do the other customers point and stare?
No. The cashier smiles, Carlos realizes his mistake and laughs, and they share a brief, warm moment of human connection over a silly, harmless error.
The world keeps spinning. In fact, that minor mistake actually created a more authentic, warmer interaction than a perfectly robotic, flawlessly executed order ever would have.
That is the secret the rigid grammar exercises don't teach you. Vulnerability creates connection. Perfect, robotic efficiency creates distance.
And when we avoid vulnerability out of fear, we experience deep, lingering regret. Consider the narrator's story about the guitar.
This person bought an expensive guitar, bought all the picks, the straps, the sheet music. They told everyone they were going to learn how to play.
But they kept making excuses, they put it off, they were waiting until they had more time or until they could afford the best teacher.
Then their 7-year-old niece comes over, picks up a cheap plastic instrument, and just starts playing a song.
Why? Because the child simply took lessons, made terrible squeaky noises for a few weeks, and took action.
The adult was shown up by a child because the child doesn't have the suffocating ego and the perfectionism that paralyzes adults. The child doesn't care about looking foolish.
But I have to ask a question that pushes against the overarching theme of these lessons.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire deep dive talking about the fear of wasting time. We are told not to waste our life, not to pass time, to optimize our actions, to stop putting things off, and to act now. But as one of the sources so wisely questioned, if you waste an afternoon doing absolutely nothing, maybe watching a terrible movie, or, yes, watching a hamster eat a tiny burrito just to recharge your mental battery.
Just to maintain your baseline sanity.
Exactly. Is it really a waste? Does our cultural obsessive focus on not wasting a single second actually create the intense underlying anxiety that prevents language learners like Sarah from just relaxing, taking a breath, and speaking naturally?
That is the central paradox we have been circling this entire time.
Yeah.
And if we synthesize the linguistic data with the cultural narratives we have discussed, I think we find a profound answer.
What is it?
The true waste isn't resting. It isn't watching a silly video or sleeping in on a Sunday or enjoying a bowl of lentil soup without worrying about how much time it saved you.
So what is the real waste?
The true waste is when you look back on your life using that specific phrasal verb of reflection. And you realize that you missed out on genuine human connection because you were paralyzed by the fear of making an error. The anxiety that trapped Sarah for 11 years wasn't caused by resting. It was caused by hiding.
Native speakers make grammatical mistakes every single day.
We use the wrong tenses, we stumble over our words, we misuse idioms, we lose our train of thought, but we do not stop speaking.
We simply rely on confidence, context, and the grace of the listener to carry the meaning forward.
We do not let the fear of an imperfect sentence stop us from communicating our needs, telling our jokes, or expressing our love.
The true waste is hiding from connection. That is incredibly powerful.
It really is.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, let's look at the journey we've taken. We have navigated the treacherous, socially dangerous waters of Ed versus Ing, and hopefully saved you from ruining any future first dates.
Definitely.
We have examined the fast-paced, ruthless efficiency of American diners and coffee shops, and learned how to wear the linguistic t-shirt and jeans.
We explored the psychology of why we try to kill time and learned how to stop putting things off.
And most importantly, we discovered that language is not a standardized test you are preparing to pass someday. It is a messy, beautiful, imperfect tool that you use bravely and awkwardly today?
It fundamentally comes down to reclaiming your agency. It's about moving away from the passive, anxious wait for perfection and stepping into the active, messy vulnerability of real human connection.
So as you go about the rest of your day, as you look at your goals, your language learning, or even just think about reaching out to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, you have a fundamental choice to make.
Is it going to be one day or is it going to be day one?
And I'll leave you with a final paradigm shift to mull over. We've established that every native speaker constantly relies on context, body language, and mutual grace to gloss over their own daily grammatical errors.
So what if your mistakes aren't actually failures at all? What if they are simply the natural accent of someone brave enough to show up and try?